Mike, what's a good source of funds to use for funeral trusts? Insurance, annuities, 401ks. Really, what's the best place to probably get started with that?
Well, what I've always done in my practice, and I spent 15 years marketing the funeral trust to my financial clients and the estate planning. And coming from a Medicaid point of view, I spent 20 some years working with Dovnik Law Offices doing Medicaid plans for them. And one of the things that we knew right up front, that by setting up the funeral trust, it was Medicaid exempt. It was money that's going to be there even if they ended up in a nursing home. And an interesting fact, Mark, is that 93% of all seniors over the age of 65 do not have what? And that is long-term care insurance. And so their concern is that we want to make sure that we have funds available that's going to take care of the final expenses when we pass away. And so by funding the funeral trust really will assist them in doing that. In finding the funds, Mark, what I have always found is that the first place that I look at is, do they have paid up life insurance? Many of my clients would come into my office and say, well, gee, Mike, I've got a $10,000 paid up policy. My wife's got a $10,000 paid up policy. And at this stage of our life, we've had the policies for over 35 years, and we're just going to use the life insurance to pay the funeral home, which seems to make sense when they say it, but I have to educate the client. Is number one question I ask them when they do that is, I say, now, do you folks have long-term care insurance? And we know the answer to that 93% of the time. They do not have long-term care insurance. Secondly, I have to educate them that any life insurance here in Wisconsin, where we are today, any life insurance over $1,500 is a countable asset if we had to do a Medicaid spend down, meaning that once the money's gone, that the county would look at the life insurance as a countable asset, because if it's a $10,000 policy, it's paid up, the cash value is going to be about the same. And so therefore, we would be forced to cash the policy out, take the cash, put that into the bank account, and then spend that down to $2,000 until that person is eligible for Medicaid, and there goes their funeral plan. So I share with them very simply, Mark, is that by taking a 1035 exchange, in other words, taking that old life insurance and doing a tax-free exchange right into the funeral trust product, instantly we protect that money from the nursing home. And again, the 1035 exchange, Mark, is probably one of the easiest sales that you're ever going to make, because you're just taking money from a countable resource and changing it to an exempt asset by putting it into the funeral trust. I think another good way, if they don't have life insurance, but you may have sold them annuities in the past, where you could take out a 10% free withdrawal. For an example, if you had a $200,000 annuity, you could sit down with the husband and wife and say, well, what I'd like to do today is share with you on how to take the existing annuity. We'll take out a 10% free withdrawal. You'll get a check in about a week from the annuity company for about $20,000, and I'm going to have the annuity company withhold the tax liability on that interest. So at the end of the year, you're not going to have a tax liability because we'll do the withholding for you. When you get the check in about 2 weeks, don't cash it, but call me and we'll set up another appointment and have you come back in, and I'll help you fund two $10,000 funeral trusts, one for you and one for your wife. And again, that's a very easy sale. You're just taking an old annuity, diversifying your client into the funeral trust, and showing them how to protect a portion of it from the Medicaid spend down if they went to the nursing home. So I think, Mark, those are the two good ways to fund the funeral trust. And obviously the third way would be just have them write you a check. It's very easy to do. Where they have money in the money market, they can just write you a check for the funeral trust planning. So those are the three typical ways that we find the monies. First, it's the 1035 exchange, 10% free withdrawal, and then also taking where we're just writing a check for the amount that we want to put into the funeral trust.
Thanks, Mike.